dorms. I pulled all the pranks. I slept through a lot of chapels. I attended all the classes. And it's just a special, special place. And I am so glad to be back here. And not only did I graduate from Hope in 2006, but this place and its professors, as well as the friendships and relationships I formed here, made me into the believer, the husband, the father, and the pastor that I am today. Thank Dante very much. That's perfect. HIU, again, is a special spot that I believe God is mightily using for the advancement of his kingdom. It was happening when I was here, it's happening now, and it's going to continue to happen in the future. Now, while I have been a pastor for almost 20 years now, it wasn't always my plan to go into vocational ministry. Before my sophomore year of high school, I actually decided that I wanted to become an architect. And so I signed up for a 3-year auto computer-aided drafting course, or as they call it, AutoCAD. And I got into it, and I quickly excelled, and I quickly started designing everything from bridges to office buildings to a ranch-style house. You know, the ones with the low-hanging roof and porch that wraps around the entire home. You know those homes where you're rocking on a porch swing next to your bloodhound with a sweet tea on a lazy Sunday afternoon? Like one of those kind of homes. I designed one of those, and it's a design that I showed my then girlfriend, now wife Rachel, and to this day she's still waiting for me to build it for her. Actually, I kind of promised it. No, I didn't. But before we got married, I would do that, but I didn't. But anyway, this drawing, it got the attention of my AutoCAD teacher. It really impressed him. And so he had me entered into a couple of competitions. And during one of these competitions, I got the attention of Cal Poly Pomona's architectural design program, which then led to a series of meetings with them my entire junior year of high school, which then led them to offering me a complete, full 4-year academic scholarship. I was 17 years old, and all this was happening to me. It was a crazy, crazy time of my life. And in a much more serious way, it was a crazy time in the life of Jesus. The Passover festival in Jerusalem was just days away, and his plan his plan was to die as the one and only Passover lamb for the sins of the world. So as Passover was drawing near, Jesus was drawing near to Jerusalem. And in today's passage, he's found in Bethany, only 2 miles away, John chapter 12, verse 1. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Yeah, you read that right. Last time Jesus was in Bethany, what did he do for Lazarus? He raised him from the dead. Lazarus was dead for 4 days, and Jesus raised him. So the next time Jesus is there, it's only natural to grab a bite to eat with the guy, right? You raise someone from the dead, you should have dinner with him. And so that's what happens. And Mark's gospel tells us who hosted the dinner, Mark 14:3. While Jesus was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the, what's that last word? Leper. Do you find something wrong with that? If you had leprosy, were you allowed to be at home hosting a dinner party in Bible times? No. By law, you were banished to live outside city limits with the other lepers because leprosy was incurable and contagious. With that in mind, how is Simon allowed to be in his house within town hosting a dinner party? How is this possible? John's gospel gives us the answer. John 12, verse 2. Here a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha, Lazarus' sister, served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. Now Lazarus' other sister, Mary, is also there. More on her later. So imagine Lazarus just sitting there. Imagine this guy who was dead is sitting there, and this isn't a weekend at Bernie's situation. This guy is actually alive. If you're old, you got that joke, right? The dead guy okay, never mind. He was dead, and Jesus resurrected him, and now he's eating dinner. What a trip. Which is exactly my point about Simon the leper. I believe, personally, Jesus healed Simon miraculously. And after being allowed back home, he kept his nickname as a reminder of who he once was. Then, grateful for new life, Simon the leper thanks Jesus by hosting a dinner party in his honor and inviting others like him who are saved, such as Lazarus. This is a Saved by Jesus club dinner here, and that's what's going on. He's bringing people in who God saved, Jesus saved, and inviting them to dinner, such as Lazarus. I too can confidently say that Jesus saved me. And I backed that gratitude with action. During the time when I was meeting with Cal Poly over and over and over my junior year, I actually became a Christian during that time. And I was thankful to God, and I showed him my appreciation by becoming really, really, really involved with my church. I attended high school youth group. I volunteered at junior high youth group. I taught the Sunday morning junior high study during first service. I attended church during second service. And after that, I volunteered in the nursery during third service. I showed up early to everything to set up, and I stayed late to tear down. And I attended all the trips and all the retreats and all the missions trips that the church offered. So, in March of 2001, I rode with my youth pastor, Randy, up to the men's retreat in Oak Glen in the San Bernardino Mountains, close to here. Randy was my mentor. I trusted him with everything. I trusted everything he said, but I had no idea how to respond to what he told me on the way up to the retreat in his car. He said, "Joe, listen, I know about Cal Poly's offer. And I know about your plans to become an architect. But God has put something on my heart to tell you. I believe after high school, you need to go to Bible college and become my intern, because after graduation, you're meant to go into full-time ministry." You know what I said next? Nothing. Nothing. I just sat there in stunned silence in his car. Randy broke the awkward silence and said, "I know this is life-changing information, and I know that you're going to need some time to think and pray, but can I ask you to do one very important thing while you're thinking and while you're praying? Give God everything. Give him everything. Your talents, your future, your thoughts and ideas, all that I just told you, everything. Give it all to him, then decide." I believe Simon the leper gave Jesus everything. He kept his nickname as a reminder of how Jesus saved him, and then held a dinner party in Jesus' honor and invited others whose lives were also changed by him. And it was at this party that another guest whose life was changed by Jesus, Mary, gave Jesus her all in gratitude as well for resurrecting her brother Lazarus. John 12:3a. Then Mary took a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume, and she poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. Two things we need to know here. First is a question. Do you all know what the New Testament was written in originally? What language? Greek, exactly. It was written in Greek. Well, the definition of the Greek word for pint, up there highlighted, is 1 Roman pound, which is pretty much 12 fluid ounces. Your typical soda can. With that in mind, just how expensive was one soda can's amount of this perfume? Do you all know? Verse 5 tells us it's worth an entire year's wages. An entire year's wages. Imagine not spending a dime of an entire year's salary and exchanging all of it for the amount of perfume it would take to fill this can. That's the first thing we need to know. Second thing we need to know, Mark's gospel tells us that Mary broke the jar the perfume was in and not only poured it on Jesus' feet, but also, where? On his head. With those two things in mind, let's talk about how Mary is reverently giving Jesus her all in 3 different ways. First of all, she is giving to Jesus out of sacrifice. Did you know that common oil and water would have sufficed here? It would have been just fine. But instead, she used a rare perfume. Worth how much? An entire year's salary. That's how she gave sacrificially. Secondly, she's giving to Jesus her all, her everything, out of humility. You see, in Bible times, when a guest entered a home, the house servant would clean their feet with oil and water. Have you ever done that? I've done it a couple times in camps and mission trips. Extremely humbling. And while that's already humbling, the servant used what to wash the feet? Their hands. But what did Mary, who wasn't a servant, by the way, use to wash Jesus' feet? Her hair. Even more humbling. Finally, she's giving to Jesus out of submission to his will. Out of submission to his will. Because to pour oil, spices, and perfume over someone's head was a technique used to prepare a body for burial. That's how you prepared bodies for burial. Jesus had already given so much to humankind, and in just a few days, he's about to give so much more through his sacrificial death on the cross, and Mary has submitted to that through this powerful gesture. But this act begs the following question. How did Mary know? Did she have the Bible like we do now? Could she read to the end? Could she pull out her iPhone 17, pull up her Bible app, and find out that Jesus is going to die in about a week and a half? Even his disciples had no idea. How did Mary know? How was she so in tune with and submissive to the will of Jesus? Here's how. Every single time Mary is mentioned, across all 4 Gospels, she's in the same exact place. You guys are going to notice a theme here. While Jesus was staying at Mary and Martha's house, and Martha was busy working, Luke chapter 10 says that Mary was where? At the Lord's feet. At Jesus' feet, listening to what he taught. After her brother Lazarus died, Jesus made his way to Bethany, and the instant Mary knew Jesus was on his way, she ran out to him, and John chapter 11 says she was where? At his feet, falling at his feet in surrender. And the third and final time this Mary is mentioned is in John chapter 12, at his feet, giving her all to Jesus out of sacrifice, humility, and submission to his will. A will that Mary has found herself familiar with, because every time she's mentioned, where is she? At the feet of Jesus. In verse 3b, John goes on to mention that the whole house was filled with the lovely fragrance of perfume, which I believe symbolizes the beauty of Mary's sacrificial, humble, and submissive act of worship. But you all know a certain disciple didn't see it that way. John chapter 12, verse 4 on the next slide. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, as the treasurer, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Judas did not make it a habit to sit at the feet of Jesus. Judas actually made it a habit to take advantage of Jesus. Jesus allowed this guy to be his disciple, and Jesus allowed this guy to be in charge of the group's money. And what did he do with these gifts from Jesus? He took advantage, not once, over and over and over and over, until it was all too easy to do something as serious as betray him, which is what's going to happen in just a few days from this point. And so my question is, are we making it a habit to offer Jesus our all at his feet? Or are we simply taking advantage of what he's generously allowed us to have and deserves in return? I'll be honest, I took advantage of what Jesus generously gave to me. I did. I didn't want to give up everything he gave to me back to him, because that meant I might have to go into full-time ministry, and I didn't want to do that. After Randy told me he believes God told him I was meant to go into full-time ministry, my immediate thought was, nope. Now, let's make a few things clear. Was I a Christian? Yes. Was I thankful for Jesus for saving me? And did I serve him in response? Yes. Here's the biggest one. Is there anything wrong with a vocation outside of ministry? Absolutely not. Let me tell you something. The more believers working outside of ministry and in the world as a witness, the better. Would my relationship with Christ have ended or weakened had I gone that route? No, of course not. But what I am saying happened here is this. My vocation was the one thing I didn't want to give God. I didn't want to give it to him. I worked too hard for that. AutoCAD didn't replace classes. It added to my full schedule. Many of my designs took me staying after school to redo and improve. And AutoCAD classes weren't free. The materials, the books, and the class fees cost money. So I had to take extra hours at my part-time job to pay for all of it. And then there were all those drives up to Cal Poly for meetings, sitting in so much traffic. All this hard work, all this time spent just for me to consider listening to God, who very well could be saying, hey, hand it all over and go into full-time ministry. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. If that was God's will for my life, then no. I thought going that route after all my hard work was a gigantic waste. So you know what I did? I stopped praying to God. I stopped praying, and instead I started yelling at him, physically yelling at him. Thankfully, when I was alone when I did it all those times, so no one thought I was weird. But I was literally yelling out to him, God, why? What about all my hard work the last 2 years? Haven't I given you plenty enough already? Can't you please just leave this one part of my life alone? Can't you be the Jesus that I want you to be? The one who's sufficiently happy with all that I've already given through all my service at church. But when God wants your attention, he doesn't quit, huh? He don't quit. I'm telling you, Hope, I became physically unsettled. I didn't sleep well. I didn't eat much. I couldn't concentrate on anything else the rest of my junior year or that following summer. It was through those unsettling times Jesus was rebuking me. Just like he rebuked Judas for calling Mary's reverent act a giant waste. John chapter 12, verse 7. Leave her alone, Jesus replied. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. All right, let's get something clear about this passage. Judas called Mary's act a waste because the money made by selling the perfume could be used to help a lot of poor people. Now, while he's just looking to take advantage of that money, was Judas wrong here? No, he was absolutely correct, which is why you'll notice Jesus never said it was a bad idea. In fact, he commands us to help and serve and give to the poor over and over and over. Just read the Gospels for 10 seconds, you'll find it, right? So what is he saying here? Here's what I believe he's saying. He's saying, listen, you must give everything to me first, before anyone else. Because then, after you give it to me, any help you provide the less fortunate and the marginalized will be that much more effective and impactful. Give it to me first, then go out and serve as commanded, and you will see how much more impactful you will be. Because what you provide the less fortunate and what you provide the marginalized will then come from and be blessed with my blessing, having filtered all of it through me and with my love first. So let us go out and serve the poor. Let us go out and serve the marginalized. Let us go out and serve the less fortunate, but let us give it to God first, because then when we go out, we're going to do that much better of a job. So what he's saying here is, come to me. Pour out your all at my feet first. And then see just how much more impactful you will be in blessing the less fortunate in the world. Fall of my senior year, my mind was still flooded. I was angry. I was confused. I was unsettled. I was full of anxiety and worry. I remember one day after school, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember driving to Rachel's house, my girlfriend's house, but the next thing I knew, I was at Lake Paris State Park 3 miles away. I wasn't even sure how I got there. You ever have one of those days where you pull up somewhere in your car like, when did I get here? How did this happen? That happened to me. I got to Lake Paris, and Lake Paris is 3 miles long, and it has 10 miles of shoreline. And when I parked my car and when I got out, I didn't see anyone. Not a soul. I still don't know at that point how I got there. A whole new meaning to Jesus take the wheel. Like literally, he took the wheel and he took me there. And not only did I not see a single person anywhere, it was completely silent. No birds chirping, no wind blowing, nothing. Still wondering how I got there, I walked from the parking lot to just a few feet from the water. And then I fell to my knees. For the first time in 6 months, I sat at the feet of Jesus and I spoke to him. I finally gave him everything. I broke open my jar of perfume and I poured the last 2 years of my life right at his feet. I audibly told him I wanted to give him everything. Less than a month later, I applied to HIU without a single scholarship. But God provided. He provided federal grants, and he provided ministry scholarships that almost appeared as if from nowhere. He also provided me work. I never went a single day while at Hope without a part-time job or a paid internship. And upon graduation, I also had a full-time ministry job waiting for me. I gave God everything. I poured out what I considered the most valuable, what I clutched the hardest. I did it at his feet, and when I did, he provided in his perfect way and timing. At this point in your life, I'm going to ask you, just think silently between you and God, no one else's business. At this point in your life, what do you consider the most valuable? What are you clutching onto the hardest? Is it your future? I worked so hard for this, I can't hand it over to God. Is it a sin? No, that sin provides me comfort and helps me to escape. I can't hand it over to God. Is it anxiety? Does God even understand what I'm going through mentally and emotionally right now? Is it doubt or unbelief? How could I even be sure God is real? Why should I even trust him in the first place? Listen, Hope, take it from me. A real life example. When I found myself on a different wavelength than God, when I didn't understand his will for me, when I felt weighed down by life, when there seemed to be no relief in sight, when I had an important decision to make and I didn't know which one was right, when it seemed like I was just not hearing from God, when I was yelling out audibly, I don't see the Lord working in my life, I haven't heard from him lately, I don't know what to do. When all those things were happening to me, the only thing that worked was finally getting down on my knees and pouring my all out to him. It wasn't until then that I was provided peace. It wasn't until then that I was provided relief. Doing so even put me in touch with other believers and counselors that got me the vocational, mental, and emotional support that I needed. Doing so got me to where I am today. And now, I'm not saying I got it all figured out. Far from it. But putting ourselves at his feet is a daily task to daily help us with whatever life's about to throw at us next. Because life don't stop. It keeps going. So whatever you're clutching onto, your future, a sin, worry and anxiety, doubt or unbelief itself, fall down to your knees, pour it out at the feet of Jesus Christ, who unconditionally loves you, and watch how he provides in his perfect way and timing. Would you all please quietly stand with me as we close in prayer and worship? Dear Jesus, thank you for coming to earth, living a perfect life, dying on the cross for our sin, and raising from the grave. Whenever we're apprehensive to give you any part of our life, or aren't sure what to do next, or we just feel weighed down, may we remember that you love us unconditionally and are just waiting for us to fall on our knees and pour out whatever we hold most dear at your feet. Father, be with these students. Let them know you love them unconditionally. Surround them with your protection and surround them with the right people to provide them all that they need emotionally and mentally and spiritually so that they can get out there to advance your name and your kingdom, all for your glory. And it's in your name we pray.